December 21, 1848, 6 in the morning, Macon, Georgia. Christmas week. A light-skinned black woman stands in front of a cracked mirror in a dark wooden cabin. Her hands are shaking. In those hands, a pair of scissors. She's about to cut off all her hair. Every lock that falls to the floor is a piece of her past dropping away. Every snip of those scissors is one step closer to freedom or death. There is no middle ground tonight. Her husband, William, sits behind her sewing a silk bandage. His fingers move, quickly stitching together the final piece of their plan. Outside, dogs bark in the distance. A slave patrol rides past on horseback. The sound of hooves on dirt makes them both freeze. They wait. The sound fades. They breathe again. In the next 4 days, this enslaved woman will walk into train stations in broad daylight. She will purchase first-class tickets. She will eat dinner with slave catchers. She will sleep in the finest hotels in the South. She will fool railroad conductors, steamboat captains, military officers, and plantation owners. And on Christmas morning, 1,000 miles from where she started, she will step off a train in Philadelphia as a free woman. Her name was Ellen Craft, and everything you were taught about slavery is about to be shattered. Because here's what they don't want you to know. This escape wasn't just one couple running in the night. It inspired thousands to run. It proved that slavery could be defeated with intelligence, not just violence. It showed that one black woman with no education could outsmart the entire white Southern power structure. And that truth was so dangerous, so threatening to white supremacy, that they erased it from history books for 75 years. Your teachers never told you this story. Your textbooks skipped right over it. And that erasure was intentional. Because if you knew what Ellen Craft did, you'd understand something they never wanted you to understand. Your ancestors were not helpless victims. They were brilliant strategists. They were warriors. They were geniuses who built their freedom with their minds. This is the story of the Christmas train to freedom. This is the story they buried. This is your stolen history. And today, that changes. By the end of this video, you're going to know 3 things that will change how you see everything. First, you'll understand exactly how a light-skinned black woman became a white man for 4 days and fooled every single person she encountered. You'll see the brilliance of her disguise, the courage it took to execute it, and why passing as a white male slaveholder was the only way this plan could work. Second, you'll discover why Christmas timing made this escape possible, and how enslaved people weaponized the one holiday that slave owners thought proved their benevolence. You're going to see how Ellen and William turned white people's celebration against them and used the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. Third, you'll learn why this story was systematically removed from American history books and what that erasure means for you right now today in 2025. Because when you understand why they buried this truth, you'll understand why they're still burying truth today. This isn't ancient history. This affects your life right now. Ellen Craft's children fought for your right to vote. Her escape route became part of the Underground Railroad network that freed thousands. Her courage runs in your DNA, and her story explains why the wealth gap exists, why reparations are owed, and why they're still trying to control what you learn about your own past. After this video, you'll never see Christmas the same way again. Because while white families celebrated the birth of Christ, black families used that same holiday to birth their freedom. And you'll understand that your poverty today isn't your fault. It's the result of systematic theft that started in 1619 and never actually stopped. So let me take you back to 1848. Let me introduce you to 2 people who changed history. And let me show you why their names should be as famous as any freedom fighter who ever lived. Ellen Craft was born in 1826 in Clinton, Georgia. Let that year sink in for a moment. 1826. Your great-great-great-grandparents might have been alive then. This is not ancient history. This is recent. Her mother's name was Maria. Maria was enslaved by a white man named Major James Smith. And Major James Smith did what slave owners did. He raped Maria. The child born from that rape was Ellen, which means Ellen's father was also her enslaver. Let that sink in. Her own father owned her as property. Her own father could sell her, beat her, work her to death. And that horror was legal. That horror was normal. That horror was America. Ellen had light skin because of her white father. Light enough to pass for white. She had straight hair, European features. And that made her slavery even more grotesque, even more visible. Because anyone who looked at Ellen could see the evidence of rape written on her body. She was living proof that slavery was built on sexual violence. She was walking evidence that white men were raping black women systematically, constantly, without consequence. When Ellen was 11 years old, Major Smith gave her away as a wedding gift to his daughter, Eliza. Read that again. A father gave his own biological child, his daughter, Ellen, as a wedding present to his other daughter. Ellen was 11 years old, and she was wrapped up and gifted like a piece of furniture. That was her life. That was her value in their eyes. Eliza took Ellen to Macon, Georgia. Macon in the 1840s was a cotton boom town. About 8,000 people lived there. 3,000 of them were enslaved black people. The city was built on stolen black labor. The railroads that ran through Macon, the ones that would eventually carry Ellen to freedom, were laid by enslaved hands. Think about that. Enslaved people built the very infrastructure that some of them would later use to escape. They built their own freedom road without even knowing it. Ellen worked as a house servant for Eliza's family, the Collins family. She cooked, cleaned, served, did whatever they demanded. And she was smart, brilliantly smart. But she couldn't read or write because it was illegal to teach enslaved people literacy. You could be killed for learning to read. You could be whipped to death for owning a book. They kept you illiterate on purpose because educated slaves were dangerous slaves. If you could read, you could forge freedom papers. If you could write, you could communicate and organize. So they made sure you couldn't. But what they couldn't control was Ellen's mind. They couldn't stop her from observing, from analyzing, from studying how white people moved, talked, acted. And Ellen watched everything. For years, she watched. Now let me tell you about William. William Craft was born in 1824 in Macon, Georgia. 2 years older than Ellen. He was enslaved from birth, just like her. But William had a skill. He was a cabinet maker, and he was excellent at it. So good that his enslaver hired him out to other white people. William would build furniture for wealthy families, and his enslaver would collect the money. Out of $220 that William earned in a year, his enslaver let him keep $20. The rest, $200, was stolen every year for his entire life. When William was 16 years old, his enslaver sold his sister. Just sold her. One day she was there, the next day she was gone, dragged away in chains to another plantation. Then his brother was sold. William watched his family ripped apart, and there was nothing he could do. He was 16 years old and completely powerless, and that powerlessness burned inside him like a fire. He met Ellen at a church gathering sometime in the mid-1840s. They fell in love, and they made a decision that was both beautiful and terrifying. They decided to marry. Now understand this. Enslaved people couldn't legally marry. Marriage required consent, and enslaved people couldn't consent to anything because they weren't considered people under the law. But they married anyway. In the eyes of God, in the eyes of their community, they became husband and wife. But that marriage came with unbearable pain, because Ellen knew what her mother had gone through. She knew that slave owners raped enslaved women constantly. She knew that any children she had would be born into slavery, would be owned by the Collins family could be sold away from her at any moment. And she couldn't bear it. She told William, "I cannot bring children into this hell. I cannot watch my babies be sold. I cannot do what my mother did." So they made a choice. They would either be free or they would die trying. There was no third option. In the fall of 1848, Ellen learned that the Collins family was in financial trouble. They were planning to sell her south, down to the deep south, to the sugar plantations of Louisiana or the cotton fields of Mississippi, where the work was harder, the violence worse, the death rate higher. If Ellen went south, William would never see her again. That separation would be permanent, final. That's when William had the idea. He'd been thinking about escape for years, turning over different plans in his mind. Most enslaved people who ran went at night. They hid in swamps, traveled through forests, avoided roads and towns. It was dangerous, and most got caught. But William thought, what if we do the opposite? What if we travel in broad daylight? What if we use the system against itself? And then he looked at Ellen, at her light skin, her ability to pass for white, and he saw the plan. Ellen would disguise herself as a white male slaveholder traveling north for medical treatment. William would play the role of her enslaved servant. They would buy train tickets, stay in hotels, eat in restaurants. They would hide in plain sight. It was audacious. It was brilliant. It was absolutely insane. And it might just work, but there were massive problems to solve. First, Ellen couldn't write. If she was pretending to be a wealthy white man, she'd need to sign hotel registries, possibly write passes or documents. How would she do that if she was illiterate? Second, Ellen had a woman's face, smooth, soft features. How would she pass as a man? Third, her voice might give her away. Fourth, someone might recognize them. Macon wasn't that big. What if they ran into someone who knew William? They solved each problem with precision. For the writing problem, William made a sling for Ellen's right arm. She would claim an injury that her arm was too hurt to write. For her feminine features, they got poultices and bandages, and wrapped her face, claiming a terrible toothache. For her voice, she would speak as little as possible, claiming illness, and William would speak for his master when needed. For recognition, they bought green-tinted glasses and a high beaver hat that would shadow her face. William spent his entire life savings on the costume, $50, every penny he'd saved over years of brutal work. He bought white linen shirts, black wool trousers that Ellen sewed herself because she was a trained seamstress, a black overcoat, the hat, the glasses. They created the perfect image of a wealthy Southern gentleman traveling with his slave. They chose December 21st for a reason. Christmas week. This is crucial. During Christmas, enslaved people were sometimes given passes to travel to other plantations to visit family. It was one of the few times of year that black people traveling weren't automatically suspicious. Slave owners used Christmas as psychological warfare. They'd give you 3 days of slightly less work, maybe some extra food, maybe a pass to see your mother on another plantation. And then they'd use that tiny bit of mercy to say, "See, we're good to you." Slavery isn't that bad. It was a mind game, a way to make you grateful for 3 days of not being completely brutalized. But Ellen and William saw that game and flipped it. They thought, if Christmas is when black people can travel, then Christmas is when we run. They took the master's weapon and turned it back on him. On the morning of December 21st, 1848, Ellen cut her hair. She put on the men's clothes. She wrapped her face. She put her arm in the sling. She looked in the mirror and saw a white man staring back. It was terrifying. It was perfect. William left first, walking through Macon toward the train station. Ellen left separately 10 minutes later. They couldn't be seen leaving together from the slave quarters. Ellen walked through the white section of town, through streets she'd never been allowed to walk on, past shops she'd never been allowed to enter, and every single person who saw her nodded respectfully. "Good morning, sir." They called her Sir. They had no idea. At 6:30 in the morning, Ellen walked into the Central Georgia Railroad station. She walked through the white entrance. First time in her life. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it would explode out of her chest. She walked up to the ticket counter. The white clerk looked at her expectantly. "I need 2 tickets to Savannah," Ellen said, deepening her voice, speaking slowly. "1 first class, 1 second class for my boy." The clerk nodded, didn't suspect a thing. "That'll be $8, sir." Ellen paid. She took the tickets. She walked to the first class waiting area and sat down. And then she saw him. Mr. Cray, a white cabinet maker who knew William, who had worked with William, who might recognize Ellen even in disguise. He was sitting 10 feet away. Ellen's blood went cold. This is it, she thought. We haven't even left Macon and we're already caught. Mr. Cray looked at her, nodded. "Good morning, sir. Fine day for travel." Ellen nodded back, not trusting her voice. Yes, she managed, indeed. Mr. Cray smiled and went back to reading his newspaper. He had no idea. He had looked directly at her and had no idea. The train arrived. Ellen boarded the first-class car, sat down in a plush seat. William boarded the second-class car, the one for enslaved servants. They didn't sit together, couldn't look at each other. For the next 4 days, Ellen would be the master and William the slave. They had to play their roles perfectly. One mistake, and they'd both be dead. The train pulled out of the station. Ellen watched Macon disappear through the window. The city where she'd been enslaved for 17 years. The place where she'd been given away like property at age 11. And now she was leaving, in first class, dressed as a white man. It was the most terrifying and exhilarating moment of her life. Mr. Cray sat across from her for 3 hours. 3 hours. They made small talk about the weather, about business in Savannah. And the entire time, Ellen was screaming inside. But her face stayed calm. Her voice stayed steady. And Mr. Cray never suspected for even a second. Then another passenger sat down, a military captain whose name Ellen never learned. He looked at Ellen with a friendly smile. Traveling north, Sir Ellen nodded. To Philadelphia. Medical treatment. The captain glanced toward the second-class car where William sat. "That your boy?" "Yes," Ellen said. The captain leaned in, voice low and conspiratorial. "Be careful traveling north with him. Those abolitionists will try to steal him. They'll tell him he can be free. Fill his head with nonsense. You might want to sell him before you go too far north. Can't trust them once they get ideas." Ellen had to sit there and nod. Had to agree. Had to pretend to be concerned about losing her property when that property was her husband, and she was risking her life to free him. She said, "I appreciate the advice, sir. He's a good boy. Loyal." The captain nodded approvingly. "That's what you want. Loyalty." Think about what Ellen was enduring in that moment. She had to listen to this man discuss selling her husband, had to pretend to agree, had to play the role so perfectly that this military officer, this man trained to spot deception, saw nothing wrong. The mental strength it required, the self-control, the rage she must have been swallowing. It's almost incomprehensible. The train arrived in Savannah that evening, 200 miles from Macon. Ellen and William got off the train. They had made it past the first checkpoint. But Savannah was more dangerous. Bigger city, more officials, more chances to get caught. They went to the Pulaski House, the best hotel in Savannah. Ellen walked up to the front desk. William carried the bags, head down, playing his role. Ellen signed the registry with an X, claiming her injured arm prevented proper writing. The clerk didn't question it, showed them to a room, A beautiful room with a real bed curtains, a view of the city. Ellen had never stayed in a place like this, had never been allowed to, and now she was here as a guest, as a white man. William had to sleep in the servants' quarters, cold, cramped on the floor, while Ellen slept in luxury. That was part of the disguise. It had to look real. That night, Ellen ate dinner in the hotel restaurant, sat at a table with other wealthy white travelers. They talked about cotton prices, about politics, about their slaves. One man bragged about how he'd whipped a slave that morning for laziness. Another laughed about selling a woman's children to punish her for running. And Ellen sat there, eating, nodding, pretending to be one of them. She ate dinner with her oppressors, and they had no idea they were sitting across from an enslaved woman who was about to make them all look like fools. The next morning, December 22nd, they went to the dock to board a steamship to Charleston, South Carolina. This is where they almost died. A military officer stopped them at the boarding ramp. "Excuse me, sir. I need to see your certificate of ownership for that slave." Ellen's heart stopped. Certificate of ownership. It was a Savannah law. You couldn't transport enslaved people out of the city without written proof that you owned them. It was meant to stop slave stealing. And Ellen didn't have it. Couldn't have it, because she didn't own William. Nobody owned William. They were both enslaved. Ellen stammered, "I don't have it with me." The officer crossed his arms. "Then you can't board." This was it. This was the end. They'd made it 200 miles, and now they'd be caught because of a piece of paper Ellen could never have possessed. William stood behind her, frozen. They both thought, "We're going to die here." But then the ticket seller, an older white man, came over. "What's the problem?" the officer explained. "This gentleman doesn't have proof of ownership for his slave." The ticket seller looked at Ellen. "I know this gentleman. He's been through here before. Reputable man. Wealthy. He's good for it." That was a lie. Complete lie. The ticket seller had never seen Ellen before in his life, but he saw a well-dressed white man and assumed respectability, assumed wealth. And that assumption saved their lives. The officer hesitated, then sighed. "All right, go ahead. But next time, bring the papers." Ellen and William boarded that steamship with their knees shaking. They had just nearly been caught and killed. But they were still alive, still moving forward. The steamship took 8 hours to reach Charleston. Ellen dined with the ship's captain at his table. He complimented her on traveling with such a well-behaved slave. Said William looked strong, would fetch a good price if she ever wanted to sell. Ellen smiled and thanked him. Inside, she wanted to scream. Charleston, South Carolina was the most dangerous city yet. It had some of the strictest slave codes in the South. Slave catchers everywhere. Armed patrols. Any black person without papers could be arrested on the spot. And here was Ellen and William, walking right into the heart of it. They transferred to another train heading to Wilmington, North Carolina. On this train, a young white woman sat next to Ellen. She was friendly, chatty. Asked about Ellen's condition, about the bandages and the sling. Expressed sympathy. And then she started asking more personal questions. "Where are you from? Do you have family? Are you married?" Ellen had to answer carefully. Had to keep her voice steady, masculine. Had to give vague answers that wouldn't contradict each other. And this woman kept talking, kept asking for over an hour. Women's intuition is powerful, and Ellen could feel this woman sensing something was off. Not quite believing, not quite sure, but suspicious. Finally, the woman got off at her stop. Ellen exhaled. Another close call. Another bullet dodged. They reached Richmond, Virginia that evening, December 23rd. Christmas Eve. They stayed at the Ballard House Hotel, the finest in Richmond. Ellen's room cost $5 a night. That's equivalent to $200 today. A fortune. And Ellen was paying it with William's stolen savings money he'd earned, but his enslaver had taken. That night in the hotel, Ellen overheard conversations. White men talking about fugitive slaves, about how they needed harsher laws, about how abolitionists were ruining the country. They talked about hunting runaway slaves like they were talking about hunting deer, sport, entertainment. And Ellen sat there listening, knowing that if they discovered who she was, they would torture her to death and call it justice. December 24th, Christmas Eve, the final and most dangerous leg of the journey. Richmond to Baltimore to Philadelphia. 50 miles from freedom. That's all that was left. 50 miles. But Baltimore had just enacted a new rule. All slaveholders traveling north had to register their slaves at a special office, had to show proof of ownership, had to sign documents. And Ellen couldn't write, couldn't sign anything. They arrived at the Baltimore train station, and an official stopped them immediately. "Sir, you need to register your slave before boarding." Ellen's mind raced. "I'm in a hurry. My train is leaving." The official shook his head. "It's the law, sir. You have to register." Ellen and William stood there, so close, so impossibly close to freedom. And now this. Ellen thought about running, thought about just sprinting for the train. But they'd be caught. Shot, maybe. This was it. After 1,000 miles, after 4 days of flawless performance, they were going to be caught 50 miles from freedom. They waited in that office for 30 minutes, the longest 30 minutes of their lives. The official kept saying, "I'll be right with you, sir." Just a moment. Ellen couldn't write, couldn't sign the registry. If he handed her a pen, the game was over. And then a bell rang, the train's final boarding call. The official looked up, panicked. "Sir, that's your train. You have to go now." But the paperwork, Ellen said, "Forget it. Run. If you miss that train, there's not another one until tomorrow." Ellen and William didn't need to be told twice. They grabbed their bags and ran, sprinted to that train, jumped on just as it started moving, and the official waved them off, smiling, thinking he'd done a good deed by letting them catch their train. God himself had opened that door. There is no other explanation. Divine intervention at the exact right moment. They should have been caught. By every logical measure, that official should have made them sign the registry. But chaos intervened. Grace intervened. And they were on that train heading to Philadelphia. The train crossed the border from Maryland into Pennsylvania, from slave state to free state. Ellen and William didn't move, didn't celebrate. Not yet. They'd heard stories of slave catchers operating in free states of black people being kidnapped and dragged back south. They wouldn't believe it until they reached Philadelphia itself. Christmas morning, December 25th, 1848, 8:30 in the morning. The train pulled into the Philadelphia station. Ellen and William stepped off onto the platform. They looked at each other. Free soil. They were standing on free soil. William later wrote about that moment. He said it felt like a burden had rolled off his shoulders, like chains he'd been carrying his entire life suddenly broke. Ellen took off the hat, the glasses unwrapped, the bandages from her face. Let her hair, what was left of it, show. She was Ellen again. Not a white man, not a slaveholder, just Ellen. Free Ellen. Her first words were, "Thank God, William." Thank God. They had traveled 1,000 miles through the heart of slave territory. Ellen had fooled 4 train conductors, 2 steamboat captains, dozens of white passengers, countless hotel staff members, military officers, and government officials. She had eaten dinner with slave owners, slept in the finest hotels, walked through whites-only spaces, and every single person had believed she was a white man. Not one suspected. Not one. This wasn't luck. This was genius. This was brilliant strategic planning executed flawlessly under the most extreme pressure imaginable. This was a master class in psychological warfare, and it was done by a woman who'd never attended a single day of school, who couldn't read, or right who'd been enslaved from birth. Let that truth sit with you for a moment. Ellen Craft, with no formal education, with no resources, with nothing but her mind and her courage, defeated the entire infrastructure of American slavery. She outsmarted every educated white man she encountered. And she did it while terrified, while knowing that one mistake meant death. Your ancestors were not helpless. They were warriors. They were brilliant. And Ellen Craft is proof. The Philadelphia Vigilance Committee, a network of black and white abolitionists, met them at the station. William Still, a black abolitionist, who would later become famous for documenting the Underground Railroad, was there. He took them to a safe house run by Quaker families named Barclay and Yvonne's. Ellen could finally cry, could finally be herself, could finally let down the mask she'd worn for 4 days. And she wept. Wept for her freedom. Wept for her mother, who was still enslaved. Wept for all the people still trapped in that system. Within weeks, they traveled to Boston, where they'd be safer from slave catchers. Their story spread through abolitionist networks like wildfire. Everyone wanted to hear about the daring escape. Ellen and William were invited to speak at anti-slavery conventions. They learned to read and write. Both of them became literate within 2 years. In 1860, they published their story in a book called Running 1,000 Miles for Freedom. That book became one of the most powerful pieces of abolitionist literature ever written. But the story doesn't end with freedom. In 1850, the United States passed the Fugitive Slave Act. This law said that escaped slaves could be captured even in free states and returned to their enslavers. It required citizens to help catch runaways. If you helped an escaped slave, you faced a $1,000 fine and 6 months in prison. The law essentially made freedom meaningless because you could be kidnapped at any moment and dragged back to slavery. In November 1850, slave catchers arrived in Boston with warrants for Ellen and William's arrest. The Collins family wanted their property back. Armed men came to kidnap them, but Boston's black community and white abolitionists said no. They hid Ellen and William, armed themselves, surrounded the house where Ellen and William were staying, and they told those slave catchers, "If you want them, you'll have to kill us first." For several days there was a standoff. The slave catchers were outnumbered. The community was ready to fight. And eventually, the slave catchers left. But Ellen and William knew they'd be back. So they made another escape. This time to England. They fled through Halifax, Nova Scotia to Liverpool. And they stayed in England for 19 years. In England, they were free. Truly free. They had 5 children. They educated themselves, studied at schools that would never have accepted them in America. And they became activists, traveling throughout England, giving speeches about the horrors of American slavery. They helped turn British public opinion against the Confederacy during the Civil War, which meant Britain never officially supported the South. Ellen and William's voices helped win a war. After the Civil War ended and slavery was abolished, they returned to the United States in 1869. They went back to the South, back to Georgia, and they opened a school for freed slaves on a plantation they bought. Think about that. They bought a plantation and turned it into a school. They took the symbol of oppression and made it a house of liberation. They educated hundreds of black children who'd been kept illiterate by law. They taught reading, writing, farming, skilled trades. They rebuilt what slavery had destroyed. William Craft died in 1900 in Charleston, South Carolina. Ellen died in 1891 in Georgia on land she owned. Free land. Her land. They lived long enough to see slavery end. They lived long enough to see their children educated. They lived long enough to fight for freedom, not just for themselves, but for thousands of others. And then America erased them, wrote them out of textbooks, removed their story from schools, made sure generations of children grew up never knowing their names. Why? Because their story was too dangerous. Let me show you why. Ellen and William's escape wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern. And that pattern terrified slave owners because it proved something they desperately needed to hide. It proved that slavery was vulnerable, that the system could be beaten, that black people were smart enough, brave enough, strategic enough to defeat it. And if people knew, that if enslaved people knew, that the whole system would collapse. So let me show you the pattern they tried to bury. Let me show you how many others did exactly what Ellen and William did. And let me show you why they erased every single one of these stories. Frederick Douglass escaped slavery on September 3rd, 1838, 10 years before Ellen and William. He was in Baltimore, Maryland, and he used the same strategy. He traveled in broad daylight during a time when black people traveling was less suspicious. In his case, he disguised himself as a sailor and borrowed free papers from a black sailor he knew. He took a train from Baltimore to Wilmington, then a steamboat to Philadelphia, then another train to New York. He traveled openly in uniform on public transportation, and nobody stopped him because he looked like he belonged. Douglass later said that if he had tried to run at night through the woods like most people did, he would have been caught. But by hiding in plain sight, by using the system's own tools against it, he made it. And his story inspired Ellen and William. They'd heard about Douglass. They studied what worked, and they adapted it. Harriet Jacobs escaped slavery in 1842. She was in North Carolina. But her escape was different. She didn't run far. She hid in her grandmother's attic for 7 years. 7 years in a tiny crawl space, 9 feet long, 7 feet wide, 3 feet high. She couldn't stand up, could barely move. She watched her children through a tiny hole in the wall, watched them grow up without her. And she waited for the right moment. That moment came during Christmas week 1842. Her enslaver was traveling for the holidays. Security was relaxed, and Harriet made her move. She left that attic and made it to Philadelphia. 7 years of waiting for the one perfect moment, and Christmas provided it. Henry Box Brown escaped slavery on March 29, 1849. Just 4 months after Ellen and William, he was in Richmond, Virginia, and his method was insane. He had a friend nail him into a wooden crate and mail him to Philadelphia. 27 hours in that box, upside down for hours, nearly suffocating, barely any water. He almost died, but he made it. And he chose to mail himself during the Easter season, when postal workers were busy and distracted. He used the holiday chaos as cover. Do you see the pattern, Christmas, Easter holidays? These were strategic choices. Let me explain why. During holidays, enslaved people were sometimes given passes to visit family on other plantations. It was one of the few times of year that black people traveling wasn't automatically suspicious. Slave owners thought they were being generous, thought they were showing kindness by allowing families to reunite for a few days. But what they were actually doing was creating an opportunity, an opening in the system. And brilliant people like Ellen, William, Frederick, Harriet, and Henry saw that opening and exploited it. Slave owners used holidays as psychological warfare. They'd give you 3 days off for Christmas, maybe some extra food, maybe a pass to see your mother who'd been sold to a plantation 20 miles away. And then they'd say, "See, we're good to you. You have it good here. Be grateful." It was a mind game designed to make you compliant, to make you accept your slavery as not that bad. But enslaved people saw through it. They understood that 3 days of slightly less brutality didn't erase 246 years of genocide. They understood that permission to see your mother for Christmas didn't make up for the fact that she'd been sold away from you in the first place. And they took that false generosity and weaponized it. They used the master's holiday against the master himself. This is what they don't teach you in school. They don't teach you that enslaved people were strategic thinkers, that they studied their oppressors, learned their patterns, identified their weaknesses, and exploited them. They teach you that enslaved people either accepted their fate or violently rebelled. They give you two options, submission or violence. But the truth is, there was a third option, strategic resistance, intelligent resistance. And it was far more common and far more successful than they want you to know. Let me give you more examples that were erased. On May 13, 1862, a man named Robert Smalls stole a Confederate warship. His name was Robert Smalls. He was enslaved and working as a pilot on a ship called the CSS Planter in Charleston Harbor. He knew how to navigate the ship, knew the Confederate signals and passwords. And one night, when the white crew went ashore, Robert and several other enslaved crew members took control of the ship. They picked up their families, who were hidden on nearby docks. And then Robert sailed that Confederate warship right past 5 Confederate forts, giving the correct signals at each one so they wouldn't be fired upon. He sailed that ship to the Union blockade and surrendered it to the United States Navy. Robert Smalls didn't just escape slavery. He stole a warship, delivered it to the Union, and then he convinced President Lincoln to allow black men to fight in the Union Army. After the war, Robert Smalls became a United States congressman, served 5 terms, fought for black civil rights, and died a hero in 1915. Now let me ask you something. How many of you learned about Robert Smalls in school? How many of you even heard his name before right now? Probably almost none of you. And that's intentional. Because Robert Smalls' story proves that enslaved people could outsmart and defeat the Confederacy. It proves that black intelligence was superior to white military strategy. And that truth shatters the white supremacist narrative. So they buried him. On July 18, 1855, a woman named Jane Johnson escaped slavery in Virginia. She was traveling through Philadelphia with her enslaver, a man named John Wheeler, who was a United States diplomat. Jane had 2 young sons with her. Wheeler was taking them to Nicaragua, where he'd been assigned. He thought Philadelphia was safe because he was just passing through. He had no idea that Philadelphia had a massive network of black abolitionists who watched every train station, every dock, every street for enslaved people passing through. William, still the same man who helped Ellen and William, got word that Jane Johnson was at the dock. He gathered a group of black men, and they went to that dock. They approached Jane directly while Wheeler was distracted and asked her, "Do you want to be free?" She said yes. And right there, in broad daylight, with dozens of white people watching, they took Jane Johnson and her 2 sons off that boat. They formed a human wall between Jane and Wheeler, and they walked her to freedom. Wheeler went to court, tried to get Jane back under the Fugitive Slave Act, said she'd been stolen, that abolitionists had kidnapped his property. The case went to trial, and for the first time, a court allowed Jane Johnson to testify. She stood up in that courtroom and said, "I was not kidnapped. I chose freedom. Nobody stole me. I freed myself with help." The court ruled in her favor. It was the first major case where the Fugitive Slave Act was successfully challenged. And it happened because the black community of Philadelphia said no. They said, "We will not allow this. We will physically intervene." And they won. How many of you learned about Jane Johnson? How many textbooks mention her name? Almost none. Because her story proves that black communities fought back, that they didn't wait for white saviors or government permission. They organized, they acted, and they freed their people. On February 15, 1851, a man named Shadrach Minkins was arrested in Boston under the Fugitive Slave Act. He was a waiter in a coffee house. He'd escaped slavery in Virginia 2 years earlier, and slave catchers found him, arrested him, took him to the federal courthouse to process him for return to Virginia. It looked like he was finished. The law was on the slave catchers' side. The federal government backed them. But the black community of Boston found out. About 20 black men stormed the courthouse in broad daylight, overpowered the guards, grabbed Shadrach Minkins, carried him out of that building while federal marshals tried to stop them. And they got him to the Underground Railroad, moved him through multiple safe houses, got him all the way to Montreal, Canada. He lived the rest of his life free in Canada, and not one of those 20 rescuers was ever identified or caught. They raided a federal courthouse. They assaulted federal officers. They violated federal law in the most public way possible. And they got away with it because the entire black community protected them. Nobody talked. Nobody gave up names. The government tried to prosecute people, but they couldn't prove who'd been there. This happened in 1851. This is not ancient history. Your great-great-grandparents were alive. This was recent, and they erased it because it proves that black people fought back successfully, that they were organized, disciplined, and effective, that they could defeat the United States government when they worked together. Do you see the pattern now? Every time black people showed intelligence, organization, strategic thinking, they erased it. Every time. Frederick Douglass escaping in broad daylight, Henry Box Brown mailing himself, Jane Johnson testifying in court, Shadrach Minkins being rescued from a federal courthouse, Robert Small stealing a warship, Ellen Craft fooling the entire South. These stories prove equality. They prove that black people were just as smart, just as capable, just as strategic as anyone else. And that proof destroys white supremacy. Because white supremacy is built on a lie. The lie that black people are inferior, that you need white guidance, that you're not capable of governing yourselves, building wealth, creating systems. But these stories shatter that lie. They show that when given the opportunity, when fighting for freedom, black people could outthink and outmaneuver the most powerful white institutions in America. And if people knew, that if enslaved people had known that if you know that, then the whole system of control falls apart. So they buried these stories. Deliberately. Systematically. Let me show you exactly how they did it. First, they destroyed the physical evidence. After Ellen and William escaped, the Collins family in Macon, Georgia, burned every record of Ellen. Her birth record, her sale record, everything. They wanted to hide that she was Major Smith's daughter. Wanted to hide that they'd given a human being as a wedding gift. Wanted to erase the evidence of their crime. So they destroyed it. This happened everywhere. After the Civil War during Reconstruction, black people started documenting their own histories. Black churches kept records. Black schools taught about resistance and escape. Freedmen's Bureau offices documented atrocities and injustices. And then the Ku Klux Klan burned it all. They burned black churches specifically because those churches held records. They burned black schools because those schools taught truth. They destroyed archives, libraries, newspaper offices, anything that documented black achievement or white violence. In Tulsa, in 1921, when white mobs destroyed Black Wall Street, they didn't just burn buildings. They burned property records. They burned business licenses. They burned family Bibles where births and deaths were recorded. They destroyed every piece of documentation that proved black people had owned that wealth. And then they made sure no new records were created. Insurance companies refused to pay claims. City officials changed zoning laws so black people couldn't rebuild. They erased the evidence so thoroughly that for 75 years, it wasn't taught in Oklahoma schools. The same thing happened in Rosewood, Florida in 1923, in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, in Elaine, Arkansas in 1919, in East St. Louis in 1917. White mobs massacred black communities, burned everything to the ground, and then destroyed all documentation that those communities had ever existed. It wasn't just murder, it was historical erasure. William Still, the man who helped Ellen and William and Jane Johnson, and hundreds of others, kept detailed records of every escape he assisted. He interviewed people, wrote down their stories, documented names and dates and methods. But he had to keep those records secret for 20 years, because if they'd been discovered, everyone in them would have been arrested or killed. He didn't publish his book until 1872, 7 years after the Civil War ended, and even then, his book was suppressed in southern states. Libraries wouldn't carry it. Schools wouldn't teach it. Estimates say that 100,000 enslaved people escaped through the Underground Railroad. But we have detailed records of only about 30,000. That means 70,000 stories are completely lost, gone, erased. Because the people who helped them had to destroy evidence to protect themselves and the people still running. Second, they used laws to suppress the truth. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 made it a federal crime to help escaped slaves, even in free states. Even if you were just giving food to a starving person, you could be fined $1,000, which is about $35,000 today, and sentenced to 6 months in prison. That law made it dangerous to document escapes, to write about them, to teach about them. If you wrote an article about Ellen and William's escape, and someone used that article to plan their own escape, you could be prosecuted for inciting slave rebellion. Southern states had even harsher laws. It was illegal to teach enslaved people to read or write. The penalty was death or severe whipping. But because if enslaved people could read, they could read abolitionist newspapers. They could read about successful escapes. They could forge freedom papers. They could communicate and organize. Literacy was power, and they couldn't allow you to have power. After the Civil War, during Jim Crow, southern states controlled what was taught in schools. They passed laws requiring textbooks to present certain narratives. The lost cause narrative. This narrative said that slavery wasn't that bad, that enslaved people were generally happy, that the Civil War was about states' rights, not slavery, that the Confederacy was noble and honorable. Any textbook that contradicted this narrative was banned. Ellen and William's story contradicted everything about the lost cause. It showed that enslaved people were desperate to escape, that they risked death to be free, that they were intelligent enough to outsmart white people. So it was removed from textbooks. Starting in the 1870s and continuing through the 1960s, Ellen and William Craft disappeared from American education. A researcher did a study in 2015. She examined 100 U.S. history textbooks published between 1900 and 2000. Ellen and William's escape was mentioned in exactly 3 of those 100 textbooks. 3. And when it was mentioned, it got an average of 2 sentences. Compare that to Benedict Arnold, a traitor. He was mentioned in 94 of those 100 textbooks, with an average of 2 full paragraphs. They gave more space to a white traitor than to black heroes. That's not an accident. That's not an oversight. That's deliberate erasure. Third, they controlled what schools taught. Even after Jim Crow ended, even after the Civil Rights Movement, the erasure continued. In the 1980s and 90s and 2000s, textbooks barely mentioned the Underground Railroad. When they did mention it, they focused on white abolitionists. Harriet Tubman got a paragraph, but it was sanitized, made safe. They never taught that she carried a gun and threatened to shoot anyone who wanted to turn back. They never taught that she was a military strategist who led Union raids during the Civil War. Frederick Douglass got mentioned, but only his speeches, not his escape. They didn't teach the details of how he beat the system because they didn't want modern black children getting ideas. They wanted you to think that freedom came from white people's generosity, not black people's resistance. The Common Core standards created in 2010 listed required topics for U.S. history classes. Harriet Tubman was on the list. Frederick Douglass was on the list. Ellen and William Craft were not. Robert Smalls was not. Jane Johnson was not. The Shadrach Minkins rescue was not. They picked the safest, most sanitized stories and left out anything that showed organized Black resistance actually winning. And today in 2025, states like Florida and Texas are passing laws banning critical race theory from schools, banning books that make white people uncomfortable, banning lessons about systemic racism. They're calling it divisive. They're saying it makes white children feel bad. But what they're really doing is the same thing they've always done: controlling the narrative, erasing truth, making sure you don't know your own history. Because if you knew your full history, you'd be dangerous. If you knew that your ancestors were brilliant strategists who defeated the most powerful nation on earth, you'd be unstoppable. If you knew that Black communities organized and fought and won, you'd organize and fight and win today. And they can't have that, so they keep lying. Fourth, they manipulated media and popular culture. When Ellen and William escaped in 1848, Northern newspapers celebrated the story. Abolitionist papers printed every detail, but Southern newspapers refused to cover it. The Macon Telegraph, the paper in their hometown, refused to print the story at all. The editor said, "We will not publicize methods of escape that might inspire others." The Charleston Mercury called them ungrateful thieves, not freedom fighters, not heroes, thieves. This was linguistic warfare. By calling them criminals instead of heroes, by refusing to use their names respectfully, newspapers dehumanized them. Southern papers would write runaway Negroes William and Ellen, never Mr. and Mrs. Kraft. They stripped them of dignity through language. After the Civil War during the 1880s through 1920s, popular magazines and books rewrote history. They created the lost cause mythology, portrayed plantation life as genteel and peaceful, portrayed enslaved people as childlike and simple, portrayed the Confederacy as noble. And Ellen and William's story didn't fit that narrative at all, so it vanished from popular culture. Hollywood has made dozens of movies about slavery and the Underground Railroad, but they've never made a major film about Ellen and William Kraft. Why their story is perfect for film. It's a thriller. It has suspense, romance, brilliant disguises, close calls, a happy ending. It's better than most Hollywood scripts, but Hollywood has never touched it. Because Ellen's story shows a Black woman outsmarting the entire white South. It shows Black genius, Black strategic superiority. And Hollywood doesn't know how to handle that. They'd rather make movies about white saviors helping passive Black victims, or movies about Black trauma and suffering. They'll show you pain, but they won't show you power. They'll show you beaten, but they won't show you winning. And that's how erasure works. It's not just about removing from textbooks. It's about controlling every space where history is told. Education, media, entertainment, public memory. They erased Ellen and William from all of it for 175 years, until now. Until people like you watching this video decide that the lies stop here. But before we get to what you're going to do about this, you need to understand why it matters right now, today in your life, because this isn't ancient history. This is happening to you right now. Let me show you how the theft from Ellen and William's generation connects directly to your bank account today. William Kraft earned $220 a year as a cabinet maker. His enslaver let him keep $20. That means $200 a year was stolen from him. William was enslaved for 24 years before he escaped. That's $4,800 stolen from him. In today's money, adjusted for inflation, that's about $168,000. Now let's say William had been able to keep that money and invest it. Just basic investment, 3% return, which is conservative. By 2025, that $4,800 would be worth $2.1 million. Williams' descendants should be millionaires, but they're not, because that wealth was stolen. They started with nothing, and you can't build generational wealth when you start with nothing. Now multiply that by 4 million. That's how many enslaved people existed in 1860. Average stolen wages about $200 per person per year. That's $800 million stolen every single year. Over 246 years of slavery, that's $6.9 trillion in today's money. Stolen. From your ancestors. That's not counting the value of land stolen. After the Civil War, the government promised 40 acres and a mule to freed slaves. 4 million freed people times 40 acres is 160 million acres. They never gave it. President Andrew Johnson reversed that promise and gave the land back to Confederate plantation owners. Today, that land is worth trillions. That's not counting Black Wall Street. In Tulsa, the Greenwood District had the highest concentration of black millionaires per capita in America in 1921. Higher than Beverly Hills, black people owned hotels, movie theaters, grocery stores, law firms, doctors' offices, and a white mob burned it all. 35 city blocks destroyed. 1,256 homes burned. 300 people murdered. $32 million in property damage in today's money. And insurance companies refused to pay claims. That happened in Rosewood, Florida, in Wilmington, North Carolina, in dozens of black communities across the country. Every time black people built wealth, white people destroyed it and faced no consequences. So when they tell you that the racial wealth gap is because black people don't work hard, that's a lie. The median white household has $188,000 in wealth. The median black household has $24,000. That's a gap of $164,000. And that gap exists because of systematic theft that has never been repaid. Ellen and William's escape story is connected to your life right now. They escaped in 1848. Ellen died in 1891. That's only 134 years ago. Your grandmother could have met Ellen Craft's grandchildren. This is not ancient history. Ellen's great-great-grandchildren are alive right now, and they're not millionaires because everything was stolen. When people say slavery was a long time ago, get over it. They're lying. Ellen Craft's grandchildren were alive in the 1970s. Your parents were alive then. The theft is ongoing because it was never repaid. They never gave back what they stole. They just stopped stealing for a minute and then started again with different methods. Mass incarceration is modern slavery, the 13th Amendment. The one that supposedly ended slavery has an exception. It says slavery is illegal, except as punishment for crime. So they criminalized black life, created laws that targeted black people, arrested you for things white people do without consequence. And now, black people are 13% of the population, but 38% of the prison population. And prisons lease out prisoner labor for pennies an hour. It's slavery with a different name. Gentrification is modern land theft. Your grandparents lived in neighborhoods that were redlined. Banks wouldn't give mortgages to black people. The government drew literal red lines around black neighborhoods and said no investment here. So property values stayed low. Your grandparents couldn't build equity. And now those same neighborhoods are being revitalized, which means white people are moving in, and you're being pushed out. Your family rented for generations because they weren't allowed to buy. And now you can't afford to buy because they've made the prices impossible. Police brutality is the modern slave patrol. The first professional police forces in the South were slave patrols. Their job was to catch runaways and terrorize black communities into compliance. Today, police shoot and kill black people at 3 times the rate of white people. They stop and frisk you. They pull you over. They assume you're criminal. They treat you like a threat. Same mission, same violence, different uniforms. Educational erasure is still happening. Right now. In 2025, Florida banned books about race. Texas banned lessons that might make students feel discomfort about race. They're calling it critical race theory, but what they really mean is truth. They don't want your children learning about Tulsa or Rosewood or redlining or Ellen Craft, because if your children know the truth, they'll demand justice. Every struggle you face today is rooted in systems built during slavery and maintained after slavery ended. You're not starting behind because you're lazy. You're starting behind because they stole your inheritance. Your ancestors were millionaires in skill and value. They built railroads and universities and wealth, and it was all stolen. And then they made sure you couldn't build it again. But here's what they couldn't steal. They couldn't steal your intelligence. They couldn't steal your resilience. They couldn't steal your spirit. Ellen Craft's brilliance is in your DNA. William Craft's determination is in your blood. 400 years of survivors are your ancestors. And if they hadn't won, you wouldn't be here. Your existence is proof that they won. Survival is victory. So let me reframe who you are. You are not victims. Listen carefully. You are descendants of people who survived the Middle Passage when 15% died in those ships. You are descendants of people who survived 246 years of slavery that was designed to kill you. You are descendants of people who escaped despite facing death. People who built the Underground Railroad. People who fought in the Civil War, 180,000 black soldiers who turned the tide. People who built Black Wall Street from nothing after being freed with no resources. People who survived Jim Crow lynchings and terrorism. People who led the civil rights movement. People who are still here despite 400 years of genocide. Ellen Craft couldn't read or write when she escaped. They kept her illiterate by law, but she outthought every educated white man she encountered. That intelligence is in you. That strategic genius is in you. She studied her oppressors for years, analyzed their patterns, identified their weaknesses, created a plan that accounted for every variable, executed it flawlessly under extreme pressure. She was a master strategist, and that brilliance flows in your veins. You're not poor because you're lazy. You're rebuilding from theft. Your ancestors were millionaires in skill and value, and their wealth was stolen. You're not starting the same race as everyone else. You're starting a race where someone stole your inheritance, burned your house, and then blamed you for being homeless. But you're still running. You're still building. And that's not struggle. That's resistance. Every day you survive in a system designed to destroy you is a victory. Every degree you earn in schools that weren't built for you is a victory. Every business you start in an economy that's rigged against you is a victory. Every child you raise to know their history is a victory. You're not surviving despite the odds. You're winning despite theft. Think about Ellen Craft's strategy for a moment. She had options. She could have run at night like most people did. She could have hidden in cargo like Henry Box Brown. But she chose the boldest strategy possible. She walked through the front door in broad daylight. That's not desperation. That's confidence. That's dominance. She didn't sneak past the system. She walked right through. It looked it in the eye and beat it. Ellen spent years studying white male behavior. She watched how they walked, talked, carried themselves. She noticed what they wore, how they gestured what they said. She became an expert on whiteness without anyone realizing she was studying them. And then she used that knowledge to defeat them. She turned their assumptions against them. She knew they'd never suspect a well-dressed person in first class. She knew they'd defer to wealth and status. She knew they were blinded by their own racism, and she exploited every single weakness. That's genius-level psychological warfare. Military strategists study tactics like that. And Ellen did it while illiterate, while terrorized, while knowing that one mistake meant death. She kept her composure for 4 days straight. 4 days of constant performance under maximum pressure. Most people couldn't do that for 4 hours. And William trusted her. In 1848, when white society said women were property, when they said women couldn't think or lead, William looked at Ellen and said, "You're the smartest person I know. Lead us." And he followed her leadership. He played a subservient role to his own wife in public. He suppressed his protective instincts. He trusted her judgment completely. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's partnership. Your ancestors weren't just survivors. They were winners. They beat a system designed by educated, wealthy white men. They beat it with intelligence and courage and faith. And that power is in you right now. Now let me tell you why God preserved you. Ellen should have died 5 times during that escape. The military officer at the Savannah dock should have arrested her. The ship captain should have questioned her. The official in Baltimore should have caught her. But God said no. She has a purpose. And he opened doors at the exact right moment. God gave Ellen light skin through trauma. Her enslaver father raped her mother. That was evil. But God took that evil and created a tool for freedom. He used her appearance to free her. That's redemption. That's God taking pain and creating purpose. Your pain has purpose too. God preserved your bloodline through 400 years of genocide. 85% survived the Middle Passage. Millions survived slavery. Millions survived Jim Crow. And you are here. God kept your ancestors alive through incomprehensible horror. Why? Because you have a mission. Because your generation has work to do that couldn't be done until now. You were born for this moment. God preserved you through everything so you could be here in 2025 with access to information your ancestors never had. Ellen couldn't read the truth. You can. Ellen couldn't share her story with millions instantly. You can. Ellen couldn't organize globally with people who share her mission. You can. You have tools she never dreamed of, and God gave them to you for a reason. Your mission is this. First, know the truth. You can't fight what you don't understand. You can't dismantle systems you don't see. So learn, study, dig into the history they buried. Read books they don't teach. Watch videos like this one. Become an expert on your own oppression so you can become an expert on your own liberation. Second, speak the truth. Your voice carries ancestral authority. When you speak, Ellen speaks. When you speak, William speaks. All your ancestors who couldn't speak, who were silenced, who were killed for speaking, they speak through you. So use your voice. Tell these stories. Correct the lies. Don't let people repeat false narratives without challenge. Third, demand justice. Reparations aren't charity. They're not a gift. They're debt repayment. $6.9 trillion was stolen from your ancestors. That's documented. We have the numbers. And it was never paid back. When Germany paid Holocaust survivors, nobody called it charity. They called it justice. When America paid Japanese internment survivors, nobody called it a handout. They called it what it was: repayment for theft. You are owed. Your family is owed. And demanding what's owed isn't greedy. It's righteous. Fourth, build generational wealth. Take back what was stolen by creating what they can't take. Invest. Buy property. Start businesses. Create systems that benefit your community. Ellen and William bought a plantation after the war and turned it into a school. They took the symbol of oppression and made it a house of liberation. do the same. Take what they use against you and transform it into power. Fifth, teach the next generation. Don't let them erase you again. Tell your children about Ellen Craft. Tell them about Robert Smalls. Tell them about Jane Johnson and Shadrach Minkins. Make sure they know that their ancestors were warriors, not victims. Make sure they know the wealth gap isn't their fault. Make sure they know they come from genius. God didn't bring you through 400 years of hell to quit now. He brought you through to complete the work. Ellen and William escaped their physical chains. Now you break the systemic chains. You dismantle the structures that created slavery and never actually died. This is your divine assignment. This is why you were born. This is why you're watching this video right now. So here's what I need you to do right now. If Ellen Craft's story shocked you if you never learned this in school, if you're angry that they lied to you, type "they lied" in the comments. Let me see how many of you are waking up to the truth. And hit that like button. Not because I'm asking nicely, but because every like pushes this video to more people who need to see it. Every like is an act of resistance against algorithmic suppression. They tried to bury this story for 175 years. Don't let them bury it again. Share this video right now. Pull out your phone and send it to 3 people. Send it to your mother, your father, your children, your friends. Don't just save it to watch later. Share it now. Because this information is too important to keep to yourself. And subscribe to this channel, because Ellen and William's story is one of hundreds we're exposing. Every week, another buried truth. Every week, another erased hero. Every week, another piece of your stolen history returned to you. We're building an archive of truth that they can't erase, and you need to be part of it. Now, let me tell you what happens next. You're going to finish this video, and you're going to feel something. Anger, probably. Pride, definitely. Maybe grief for all the time you spent not knowing. That's normal. That's good. Feel it. Don't push it away. And then, you're going to make a choice. You can close this video and go back to your life and pretend you didn't hear this. Or you can decide that the lies stop with you. That your generation is the one that breaks the cycle of erasure. That you're going to be like Ellen Craft walking through the front door of truth, in broad daylight, bold and unashamed. I'm telling you right now, you are the keeper of this truth now. You are responsible for it. Ellen risked her life to be free, so her descendants could know freedom. Don't dishonor that sacrifice by staying silent. Don't let them erase her again. Contact your local school board. Ask them why Ellen Craft isn't taught. Ask them why Robert Smalls isn't taught. Demand they add these stories to the curriculum. Bring this video to teachers, to principals. Make them uncomfortable with their omissions. Be loud. Be persistent. Tell your family stories. Sit down with your grandmother and ask her what she remembers. What her parents told her. What was passed down. Record it. Write it down. Don't let another generation's stories die with them. You are the bridge between your ancestors and your descendants. You hold the chain together. And support reparations. Publicly. Loudly. When people say it's too expensive, tell them we found money for bank bailouts. When they say it's too long ago, tell them Ellen Craft died in 1891, barely a century ago. When they say black people should just work harder, tell them about $6.9 trillion in stolen wages. Have the arguments. Win the arguments. Change minds. This isn't about revenge. This is about truth and justice. This is about taking back what was stolen and making sure it never gets stolen again. This is about honoring Ellen and William and every ancestor who fought so you could be here. This is about being worthy of their sacrifice. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you with grateful hearts. We thank you for Ellen and William Craft, for their courage that defied an evil system, for their brilliance that exposed slavery's weakness, for their faith that carried them 1,000 miles through enemy territory. Lord, we thank you for preserving their story, even when the enemy tried to bury it. Father, we pray for the 4 million souls who were enslaved, for the millions who died never knowing freedom, for the thousands who escaped and whose names we'll never know. We ask that you vindicate their memory, that you let their suffering mean something, that you bring justice for every stolen life, every stolen dollar, every stolen dream. Lord, we pray for awakening. Open the eyes of those who still believe the lies. Show them the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. Give them courage to face what their ancestors did and what their systems still do. Give them humility to listen and learn. We pray for those teaching the next generation. Give them wisdom to teach truth instead of comfort. Give them courage to face opposition. Protect them from those who want to silence them. Multiply their impact. Father, we pray for every descendant of enslaved people watching this. Remind them that they carry the DNA of survivors, that Ellen Craft's intelligence lives in them, that William Craft's faithfulness lives in them, that 400 years of winners are their ancestors. Give them pride in their lineage. Give them strength to carry the legacy forward. Lord, we pray for restoration. Restore what slavery stole. Restore what Jim Crow destroyed. Restore what systemic racism continues to take. We ask for reparations not as charity, but as justice. We ask for the debt to be paid. We ask for what is owed. Give us courage to demand what is right. Give us wisdom to build what was destroyed. Give us love to forgive without forgetting. And give us fire to never stop fighting until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. We pray for protection over this truth. Don't let them bury it again. Don't let them erase it again. Let it spread like fire until everyone knows. Until every child learns Ellen's name. Until every textbook tells her story. Until the whole world knows what she did. We pray this in the name of Jesus Christ, who was himself a refugee fleeing genocide, who himself stood against empire, who himself said the truth will set you free. Let this truth set your people free. Amen. Walk in truth. Demand justice. Remember Ellen and William Craft, and never let them erase you again. You are descendants of champions. You carry the blood of warriors. You are heirs to stolen empires. And it's time to take back what's yours. This is Black America Chronicles. Until next time, build wealth, demand reparations. And remember, your ancestors were not victims. They were victorious. And so are you. Ellen Craft died in 1891 in Georgia on land she owned. Free land. Her land. William Craft died in 1900 in Charleston, South Carolina. Free. They educated hundreds of freed slaves. They fought for your freedom after securing their own. Their legacy lives in you. Don't waste it.